up in the middle of the night. She rolls out of bed to come and give you a ride. Now that's love, love. Tell me what you want. That's what we got. That's what we need. Feel it.
Baby, that's how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. We all need love.
Tell me what makes the world go round and what's the way you found. Say it, brother. Sing it with me. Say it, brother.
Dozen red roses on a random day. Soul food Sunday with your family. Staying in a circle, hold hands and pray. Now that's love. A little loud green, little Marvin Gaye. Earth, wind, and fire down at halfway. The Aretha Franklin and Stevie could sing about love. Now tell me what you know about it.
That's what we got.
Even worse, he let them crack our lens on our camera. The cops. But so what? I mean, I'll dock them $600 for the lens, but so what? It's not about the real estate, okay? It's not about the real estate. Let's talk about why we occupy. The whole point of Vulture's Picnic, this is an investigation of the 1%. Wall Street's an address, okay? It's a street. It has a street sign. No one's against Wall Street. It's just, it's a place on the map. The issue is the 1%. Okay? And that's what Vulture's Picnic is. Now I have to say that Rick Perry called last night and asked me to change Vulture's Picnic to Job Creators Picnic. So we're going to be very careful. In pursuit of petroleum job creators, power job creators, and high finance job creators. Maybe. Well, let's meet some of the job creators. Let's ask why we occupy. You know who we occupy? We occupy for Stanley and Mattingly. There's an Osage Indian in the trailer. Saw trucks pulling up. They have those stripper wells with the horses, and these trucks pulled up as they're supposed to do and take out the oil, and they take out 40 barrels of oil and mark down 30. Again and again and again, all over the Osage Reservation. Now, I was on a crew of investigators, and our crew followed the trucks back. A few barrels here, a couple barrels here, costing Sally Ann about $30 a week, and she needed that $30. Who's taking Sally Ann's $30? So with the FBI too, follow the trucks back, loading dock. There's a guy on the loading dock telling the truckers, I want more overage. That's the skim, the $30 from Sally Ann. The guy who wanted Sally Ann's $30 standing on the platform is named Charles Koch. We had one of his executives wired, really, who asked, why? The guy already had earned $1 billion. He earned it, that is, he inherited it, the old-fashioned way. The old-fashioned way, actually. And Koch said, according to the tape, because why would you, stand on a platform and tell the tape? By the way, it's felony crime, theft, or it used to be. There's a Koch exemption. But why would you take $30 from Sally Ann Mattingly? And what's all this about? And Koch said, I want what's coming to me. And that's all of it. And that's why we occupy. Okay? By the way, I did ask for what happened to that case? Because the FBI was on it. In fact, so I asked for the case file. I used to be a racketeering investigator for the government, so I asked for the racketeering file. I asked for the files. Yep, there it was. Koch Industries Incorporated, Wichita, Kansas, crime on an Indian reservation, FBI, theft, racketeering influence, corrupt organization. And I said, I want to know what happened. We had film. We have tapes. So I put in a Freedom of Information Act to find out what happened to the indictment. And the Freedom of Information Act, well, here's the freedom, and here's the information. Really? Yeah. Why we occupy. I'm not totally sober, but I'm in Vegas, and I see the Deepwater Horizon explode April 20 of last year. And they don't green, BP, the green, they painted their gas stations green. How could they do this? I said, I know how they do this, because there was an investigation of the Exxon Valdez crack-up. 4 volumes of the racketeering investigation. And there was a recommendation for an indictment of the oil company, not Exxon, but the company that was really responsible, British Petroleum. Now, I know about those confidential 4 volumes because I wrote them. And I knew something was happening. And sure enough, right away, Ms. Badpenny, that's her real name. In fact, if you saw the films, the music from Ms. Badpenny and the Bad Actors, I get a cable. I mean, within hours, this thing going up. Ms. Badpenny gets a cable. Wait a second. See if I can find it. Oh yeah, gets this. I have to knock, and this is, all these documents, by the way, are in the book or on the vulturespicnic.org site, okay? I have first-hand knowledge of how they operate. It would not be wise for me to communicate via this IT system. It's from the Caspian Sea, from a ship floating off the coast of Azerbaijan. Now, I know you don't know where the coast of Azerbaijan is, because Americans don't know these places until the 82nd Airborne lands there, you know. They don't learn. Baku, it's one of the Islamic republics that was pooped out by the Soviet Union when it collapsed, and they have in the Caspian Sea massive oil find, okay? I get on a plane, I get myself into Azerbaijan, not easy to get out. But I go across, so I'm trying to find out what's happening. It's in the chapter, the Islamic Republic of BP, right? And I'm going across the desert with my camera crew, trying to get to the BP terminal. Now, it didn't turn out well. It didn't turn out well for Rommel either, crossing the desert, but we ended up getting arrested. First by guys, the BP police, which have oil derricks on their little tunics, and then suddenly the security ministry, and we're surrounded by military police, and of course the first thing they want is for BBC, they want our film. So, you don't argue with guys who are, have more arms than Al-Qaeda. Actually, they are the arms of Al-Qaeda, but that's another story. And so they took our film. At least they left me my pen, but it was one of those, Bad Pen gave me one of those little Austin Power jobs that had the camera in it. So we got the evidence out of what? 2 years before the Deepwater Horizon explodes, there was another blowout that was absolutely identical, a BP rig with Transocean using the same cheap crap cement, quick dry, because time is money, so quick dry. Slam bam, thank you ma'am, it's capped. Or it's not. Same blowout. They covered it up. BP executives went before the United States Congress, November 2010, and under oath swore that there was never a problem with their deep water drilling methods. 6 months later, Deepwater Horizon, boom. They didn't say under oath, nor did their oil company accomplices, because they always move in in groups like nuns. They never operate alone, They didn't say it happened before. See, we occupy for Jason Anderson. He was a rig worker on the Deepwater Horizon. And he tried to, when the cheap, quick cement blew out, exactly as it did in Azerbaijan, He tried to hit the blowout preventer button, caused a spark, and he was instantly vaporized. So he didn't know that he was on a rig that was using a method that had already blown out. See, it wasn't an accident. The Deepwater Horizon explosion was a homicide. And that's why we occupy. Okay? We occupy also for Chief Criollo and his sons, okay? Chief Criollo, if you saw that little film before, it's also in the book. Well, this starts out when I'm watching PBS. They did an investigation. PBS did an investigation of the BP Deepwater Horizon explosion called the spill, very dramatic. And they concluded that BP had ignored safety warnings. Well, it's better than nothing, kind of. No, shoot, Sherlock. But I was kind of interested in the fact that, wasn't it PBS that was warning, that ignored all the safety warnings after all those years? How many of us journalists try to get that message on the air with them? When I was reporting these things on BBC, we begged PBS to join us in the investigations. But there was a problem. See, they concluded, if you watch the PBS, it stands for Petroleum Broadcast System, right? PBS, they concluded that it was BP's lack of a safety culture. They didn't have no good culture, like not wearing gloves to the opera, right? That was the problem, their lack of a safety culture. Unlike Chevron Corporation, it concludes with a Chevron Corporation president talking about how they don't have this poor safety culture like the British, like BP. And that was the conclusion of PBS about Chevron. Oh, they forgot to mention, talk about ignoring, they forgot to mention that the number one sponsor of PBS, their official national sponsor, is Chevron Corporation. No, I don't want anyone making a connection. So I mailed them back my Ken Burns DVDs and my mug. So BBC said, so what happened with the Deepwater Horizon? I said, well, it's BP's safety culture, and they're not like Chevron. They said, Palast, your investigative reporter, that means you investigate. You're going to the Amazon jungle. We've got a boat waiting for you at the Amazon. You're going to a village in the middle of the Amazon, the Kofan native village, and find out what's going on with Chevron. Okay. So I fly down with Crazy Ricardo and go through the rainforest. The rain's coming down, and it's a rainforest. Oh, actually, it's not if you're there, it's a jungle. It's only a rainforest if you're in Sierra Club, right? But when you're there, it's a jungle. Take my word for it. And there's, raging Amazon, and then they said, so the boat was waiting for me. I'm expecting, Humphrey Bogart coming down, the African Queen. It's like, toot toot, and my boat. And then, so I said, where's my boat? And this Jeep driver in the middle of nowhere says, Subarco, right, your boat. And tied to a tree is a hand-carved out log, which you saw, this is a hand-carved log, man, with a hand-carved paddle. And all I could see is, my fedora floating to Brasilia. And thank God, so you saw in the film, actually, because there was it's like this crazy jungle movie, it's like some native comes out of the rainforest, grabs the paddle, and we're off. So I go to see, what I was going to see is something that, actually, Anderson Cooper was originally going to do the story, but he couldn't fit his makeup man in the canoe, so. Whatever. So I was investigating a fraud. According to Chevron Corporation told BBC and New York Times and everyone else, and they all printed it as truth. Wall Street Journal is absolute stone truth, that a bunch of natives had gotten together with some lawyers and were had defrauded Chevron by claiming that their kids were dying of cancer. There was oil all over the place. Of course, the Chevron lawyer told me it's the biggest fraud in the world, in the history, as he says. The guy, bouffant hairdo, Chevron lawyer. I've seen lots of scams, man. It's possible. So I went out to the rainforest. Now, I had also been down to the Gulf to see the oil that wasn't there. I mean, it was just like, big as ponies, but the big tar balls, that wasn't there. So I was going to the Amazon to see the tar balls, but it made, I'm going to tell you, man, the Amazon in those drilling areas made the Gulf Coast disaster look like, Kew Gardens, okay? It's unbelievable. And you see the sheen. I'm used to it because I investigated Exxon Valdez. You see that oil sheen. And so I went to this chief, the big fraudster, Chief Emerhildo, and it's formal because he's meeting some guy from across the water, so he's put on his war paint and, very formal. A serious character. And I said, so, come on, what happened? He explains that his 2-year-old son went swimming. There was a sheen on the water, and he came out of the water vomiting blood and dies. His other son dies of leukemia. So I go to Chevron, I go to Chevron's lawyers, and I say to them, tell me about this evidence. So, oil, they say, you know what? How do you know that it was maybe it's oil. Because I showed him, epidemiologists had given me studies showing that it was an epidemic of childhood leukemia in these drilling areas. And he said, okay, how do you know it's our oil? Right? How do you know it's our oil? They said, do you have any documents? Right? And I said, well, I don't have documents showing that it was your oil. But maybe you can explain this to me. See, this is a document from the Presidente de la Junta, which is how they describe the president of Texaco, how he signs himself, Texaco Chevron's unit. And the Presidente de la Junta personally, the president of the oil company, personally ordered that all documents, now this is my Teresa Spanish, but I think it's good enough. It says there are documents regarding oil that we have dumped in the Amazon. And we are supposed to look, not for the oil, but look for the documents and remove the documents from all field offices and all other offices and y ser destruidos. I asked him what that meant. Ser destruidos. In my world, that means obstruction of justice, destroying evidence of felony crime. And that's why we occupy. So then I come back and I get a telegram, a message actually, a telex from the Chief of Intelligence of the Free Republic of the Arctic, from Koktovik, which I don't know, Koktovik, I look on Google Map, and it's an island off the coast of Alaska above the Arctic Circle, and it says that I have to be there. It's urgent that I get there now. So I'm waiting for my next message, from Santa's elves or something. I assume it's my staff. But instead, I get another message from the Chief of Intelligence of the Free Arctic Republic. And it includes their negotiations with Shell Oil Corporation, and it's a direct request for me to come up by Etok. Now, Etok is a legendary whale hunter and the militant leader of the Eskimo in the north. So Bad Penny says we charter a something heavy that'll land on the ice there, whatever, we get there. And so he has information to me, but first we have to go through, of course, the appropriate social niceties. We sit inside a whale carcass, which is nearly as big as this room, and have a little repast of fermented whale meat in congealed blood, and which tastes like fermented whale meat in congealed blood, let me tell you. And I have a tough time, avoiding the social faux pas of vomiting on my host. Now, by the way, I just saw this, and this is interesting. Talk about documentation. I don't know if you could see this. This is from the New York Times, the paper of record, the record of, and it says, we're turning our cans white because turning our back wasn't an option. There's like 3 polar bears, and they are going to find, for the polar bears, with the World Wildlife Fund, they are going to protect the polar bears and find them a sanctuary. They're going to create a safe haven for polar bears. I thought polar bears had a safe haven. It's called a polar cap. What's happening? Why are the polar bears being moved from the polar cap? They're polar bears, right? Why do they have to find the sanctuary? And what's the zoo all about? Oh, and this is Coca-Cola Corporation. So you buy a can of Coke, they have a white can of Coke, and you buy the can of Coke and they give $1 to the polar bear zoo. Why are they moving the polar bears? ETOC tells me they're tagging the polar bears because they're ready to drill. They want to move them. I said, that's not going to happen because this is not only the Arctic Wildlife Refuge, but it's in the water off the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. That ain't happening. So this is like, why are you so paranoid? And ETOC, then ETOC, well, he was the guy who was explaining. I was also asking him why, he said, if they drill here, that's the end. Because see, whales, you can move the polar bears to a zoo, but the whales are a little bit of a problem. And whales don't like swimming in oil any more than you do, right? And if the whales go, and the reason he took me to the inside of the whale, this is not a cultural experience for us. This is a lunch experience for us, okay? If we don't have these whales, we're not here. All we're doing is cleaning out the crappers on the oil rigs. So, with ETOC, so of course, by the way, I just wanted to mention, because Bush wouldn't touch this, but last month after I came back, Obama opened up Koktovik to oil drilling off the Alaskan coast. Now, and that's why we occupy. That's why we occupy.
Right, where everything was cooking, all this hot music in the street, all this hot new music. Now that's love, love, love. Had one too many and you can't even ride. You call your baby up in the middle of the night. She rolls out of bed to come and give you a ride. Now that's love, love. Tell me what you want. That's what we got. That's what we need. Sing with me.
Baby, that's how it is. That's how it's supposed to be. We all need love. Tell me what makes the world go round. What's the way you found? Now that's love.